Hi, it's KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest today is from Willow Creek Theatre in Iowa City, Chris Appling. Chris, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Dennis.
Yeah, nice to see you. I've been aware of Willow Creek Theatre, one of the newer theater troupes, particularly in the Iowa City area for a while. Said you've been around for about 5 years?
Yeah, the theater started just around the start of the pandemic, which is...
Oh, great timing.
Yeah, I know.
So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned that you're kind of new to the board of directors, but in a theater-rich environment, what is Willow Creek's kind of niche? What do you see as the unfulfilled need in the theater community that you are filling?
Yeah, I think Willow Creek kind of meets the niche of entertainment and specifically improv. We have the first professional improv team in Iowa City. And I think we really fill that gap of trying to be a hub for really cool indie comedy and entertainment and improv. And we do all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I think that we kind of fit in with that professional like comedy and improvisation.
Well, and that leads us into what you're here to talk about, because you're bringing in a troupe from a pretty well-known Chicago improv theater and school to do a couple of days worth of concerts and also a workshop.
Yeah. Coming up on November 15th, we've got Dumb John coming in at 7:30 to do a show, and then the next morning they're going to do a workshop, it's really incredible. Dumb John, they're some of the best improvisers in the world. I think the members of that team teach the improv classes at IO, and actually I think one of the members manages the theater. So it's a really big deal that we're bringing them in, and it's so cool. And it's going to be really cool for everybody, whether you love theater, whether you love comedy. It's just going to be a really great time.
As I told you a little bit when we began, I am a little tuned in because I have a son who lives in Chicago who's been involved with IO and some other improv stuff. So I know that it's called IO. It was really short for Improv Olympics, but it's a part of the really, really big Chicago improv scene. There are, people have heard of Second City, of course, but that's just one of a bunch of improv theaters and organizations in the Chicago area. But these days, almost even more than Second City, which tends to be more toward kind of scripted type shows. IO is regarded as, kind of the top improv organization in Chicago.
Yeah. Second City leans more towards sketch comedy, you said, these days, and IO is definitely still kind of carrying that torch of like the Herald and like the original long form improv, because you're right, like a lot of really like the best comedians in the world have gone through, like Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Chris Farley went through IO, like all of the UCB comedians that started
Upright Citizens Brigade for those, which is a troupe that started out in the LA. I think they started in LA, didn't they? Or
they started in Chicago.
Actually. Oh, they started in Chicago and then branched out. I know there's a big one in New York City right now too.
Yep, they went through IO and took what they learned from IO and innovated on it and started UCB. So
you mentioned long form improv. For those who don't, who may think of improv as, give me a scene, give me a setup, and then we're going to do something right now. Explain what long form improv is.
Yeah, a lot of people have seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, which is super fun, and that's more short form games. So like having the game set up for you. From the get-go, you know what the improvisers are going to be playing with right there. And long form, you get a suggestion and then you make up scenes on the spot and find the game along the way. So it's almost like if SNL made up their skits on the spot and played it for a while. So that's long form. It's kind of like almost like a play in an essence, like where you create a short little scene and the improvisers have a fun game within that scene, and so, yeah.
And a lot of times then they'll call back as the thing progresses, call back to an earlier scene or a part of what was going on. It really takes a ton of focus and creativity because, like you said, it's got to hang together as a narrative instead of for the whole thing instead of just disconnected scenes.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the cool thing about improv, like in a world of like AI and where everything's generated and scripted, it really focuses you to be like in the moment with like your scene partners, like the fun of like being right there with somebody, like just playing, messing around, having fun. And it's a really cool, it makes you be right there in that moment. And those callbacks are super fun when you're like, oh yeah, we talked about this like 20 minutes ago, and to bring it back and create that story. And so it's fun.
Chris, obviously speaking from a lot of experience, because those watching the video can see that Chris is repping his own improv team at Willow Creek, Lady Franklin. So tell me about about what Willow Creek does, on its own to create this scene. It's, aside from bringing in troops from IO, obviously you've got an improv scene happening at the theater.
Yeah, we're starting to get a really cool community of people together to create really awesome stuff. Like I know you said your son has helped out at Willow Creek Theatre to do stuff, and so Lady Franklin is our first house improv team. Long form, we perform every Saturday night at 7:30, and we get one suggestion, and then we make up a bunch of stuff for a whole hour without stopping. And so, we're starting to set up new teams. We do conservatory every Monday nights. We have workshops. Conservatory is where people can come and learn improv. And so, we're making a really cool space for people we have stand-up shows at Willow Creek sometimes, and kind of trying to be a hub for lots of laughs.
I love it. So bringing in this team, and there's also a workshop. Talk for just a minute, and you mentioned your own conservatories. Talk for just a minute about how taking an improv class and learning improv can benefit somebody who has zero interest in theater or comedy, but it's maybe they've heard about corporate training in improv and things like that. How does it benefit? How does it benefit you if your goal is not necessarily to perform?
Yeah, I would recommend anybody take improv classes because the benefits are just so awesome. You learn, you get you build your confidence. You learn a lot of interpersonal relationship skills, being able to like that quick thinking, like you mentioned, to be able to just roll with whatever life throws at you, the situations, because up on stage, you never know what somebody's going to say to you. You don't know where it's going, and you just kind of have to be able to be comfortable enough to adapt and innovate. And so it is really, it's good for anxiety. Like a lot of you get up and you start to feel like, wow, I can get up there and be on stage and just make things up. And because anything goes. And so you just feel comfortable. Like there's not really anything wrong to say as long as you're yes-anding people on stage. Right?
Well, I was just going to mention that kind of the well-known thing about improv is you never say no. You always say yes, and here's something else. And that's a great skill to just kind of internalize in just about anything, no matter what it is, whether it's, with your family or at work or something like that. When somebody throws something out, instead of raising the objections and obstacles, saying why, yeah, and have you thought about this? That's a great skill in just about any aspect of our lives.
Yeah, for sure. Even if you're disagreeing, you can still yes and things like, yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I would add this to this. Like, I understand that, we have disagreements, but, adding on to that, too, it's about really listening. Probably one of the most underrated skills in improv is listen. It really develops that's another thing that it develops is your listening skills, because you have to really listen to the person in front of you and what they're saying to you, and being able to, interpret what they're trying to get across.
Dumb John from IO Theatre in Chicago will come and perform at Willow Creek on November 15th. Yes, is the show?
Yep, is the show that Friday night and at 7:30, and then the next morning at 11 they'll have a workshop.
And is that something you pre-register, get tickets for? How does that work?
Yep, you can go to willowcreektheater.org, and we have an Eventbrite links up there, like the Get Tickets section, and you can order them ahead of time. I would recommend that in case tickets are going fast and we have limited spots for the workshop and the show. So I would definitely recommend getting them ahead of time, but you can also, if we have leftover, can get them at the door.
Is this an ongoing partnership with IO? Do you anticipate, or have you been bringing in different troops and events from Chicago into Iowa City?
Oh, yeah. We've had a few of our members have gone through IO, and so have gone through the training, and we've built really strong partnerships with IO, and they've been incredible to work with. It's such a cool organization, and so we're really looking forward to continuing this into the future.
November 15th and 16th for Dumb John from I.O. coming to Willow Creek Theatre. And if people want to know more about this event or your weekly shows that you do, or your weekly conservatory classes as those become available, they can visit your website?
Yeah, and follow us on socials. Lady Franklin has a social media presence, and Willow Creek Theater does too. So go ahead and follow us. We got Facebook, Instagram. Go ahead and follow us on there, and we keep those updated pretty regularly. So.
And on the web, willowcreektheater.org. Well, Chris, thanks a lot for being here today, and come back in next time you got something coming up, and we'll talk about that too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dennis.
You can hear The Culture Crawl live on the radio most weekdays at 10:30, on demand at kcck.org/culture, or subscribe using your favorite podcast player. Watch our videos on the KCCK Facebook and YouTube channels. Our producer is Lydia Kilgore. The Culture Crawl theme is composed by Vivian Shanley. I'm Dennis Green, and I'll talk to you later.